Hello, YouTubers out there. This is the Boob Wasteland Show with your host, Jerry-Saravia. So today I'm going to talk about The View. A few shows back, I described Season 15, the first 2 weeks of The View, and how I felt it wasn't quite the same as when Rosie O'Donnell was on. Although I still like the show, so don't get me wrong. I guess I like when you had someone like Rosie who was certainly a loudmouth, but spoke her mind. But that's neither here or there, because sometimes things happen on The View. Since it's a live program, anything can happen. So specifically on Monday, October 3rd of 2011, The View had a certain subject regarding Rick Perry, former governor and Republican presidential candidate Rick Perry. Now, his father owns these hunting grounds out in Texas, and the name of these hunting grounds is a particular racial slur, the big one, the one that got Michael Richards into trouble, not to mention other people since Michael Richards, and certainly prior to Michael Richards. It's that one word that I will not mention on this program because you all know what it is, and I don't want to offend people. I feel already that for those who are in disagreement with my reviews or views of television and movies, I'm not going to offend those people further. So let's just say you know what the word is. And this word was one word used and combined with the word head. And I'll just leave it at that. Now, Barbara Walters reported the story and said the word. Now, I think this is the first time in View history that Barbara Walters ever uttered the actual racial slur itself, directed, again, towards African Americans. And it may be the first time in her anchor history, as an anchor woman, that she ever did it, but I'm sure the fact checkers out there would know for sure. Now, this is very interesting because Barbara has expressed dissatisfaction, not to say resentment, towards, let's say, Mel Gibson, who had got into hot water back in 2006 for making an anti-Semitic remark, stating that all Jews control the wars. And she said back then, "I'll never watch a Mel Gibson film again." So she took it hard because she herself is Jewish. But also, I guess I just have this problem here of remembering things. And I remember that in 2006, back in November, right before Thanksgiving, Michael Richards, a stand-up comic and former Seinfeld co-star, belted out that word to a couple of hecklers. Got him into trouble because he also described a certain situation with hanging and a fork and that sort of thing. So you all know probably what I'm talking about. And Barbara Walters didn't express the same kind of resentment or dissatisfaction with Michael Richards. She didn't say, "I'll never watch Michael Richards' Seinfeld shows again." Not that they're his, specifically. She didn't say anything like that. She just said, "I kind of like him." And I remember that. Not to say that she doesn't like Mel Gibson, but she obviously was far more resentful of what Mel Gibson said than Michael Richards. So the fact that Barbara Walters said the word, it was just reporting it. But normally, it seems that a lot of people who report a story like this, except for bloggers will give out the word, and as they should. I mean, you should know what it is had been said on this rock that described these hunting grounds. But the fact that Barbara said it and was censored tells me that, standards and practices don't apply necessarily to a host. In other words, they of course bleeped out the word, and every time Whoopi said it, and we all know Whoopi does say the word frequently whenever this subject is brought up, they bleep her, And Sherri-Shepherd said it, and Sherri-Shepherd took offense to Barbara Walters saying it. She said, the way you say it is not the way Whoopi can say it, and I didn't quite follow the logic, because it's a story. I mean, it's not as if Barbara has a racist bone in her body, and I would imagine she does not. But I think she may find some things more offensive than others, and she couldn't understand how Sherri expressed dissatisfaction at her, and what almost seemed like resentment, even though it's her boss. She gave her a verbal, let's say she didn't give her a verbal lashing, but she had her words with Barbara Walters. Joy-Behar never says a word. Elisabeth-Hasselbeck never says it. And they're both white, of course. Now, Elizabeth expressed dissatisfaction back in 2008, I believe. It was around the time Obama was running, President Obama was running for president. And this discussion had come up, and Whoopi and Elizabeth were at each other's throats a little bit. And Elizabeth cried, and so she was driven to tears because Whoopi says, "You'll never understand my world. You'll never really understand what that word means or what it is to be black in America." And Whoopi's right, because any white person has no clue. They have no clue. None. I don't even know. So, anyway, the point was that even then, I believe Elizabeth said nobody should say that word or think it or say it in private, which is a bit silly. It doesn't mean you can't say the word or any racial slur. You can, but you got to face the consequences. But if you're reporting a story, I think it's a little different. Roger Ebert, for example, the film critic to the SARS, he does political articles on occasion and talks about other things outside of movies and movie reviews. And he mentioned the controversy over Huck Finn, how they want to replace that particular racial slur with the word slave. And he says, as he was writing the article, as he's stating in the article, he says, I don't see a problem with stating what that word is, and he wrote the word down. He got a little bit of flack for it, not much. Sometimes it depends on who you are. We didn't hear too much about the flack that Roger Ebert got for it. Bill Maher, on Real Time Bill Maher last season, one of the guests was his brother Conrad, the Princeton University teacher and writer. And Bill Maher mentioned a story that revolved around that word. And I don't recall what the story was, but he said the word, on the air. And I don't remember anybody saying anything about that. And Bill Maher is white. So, if you're reporting the story, it's different than when you're using it. Stand-up comedy, again, I think you can get a free pass. Because after all, it's comedy. It depends on the context. Louis C.K. seems to get away with it a lot. He's white. Michael Richards just took it in the wrong direction. But if you're a broadcaster, a news broadcaster, I think you should be allowed to say the word, and it shouldn't be bleeped. But that's just my opinion. Others will disagree. But it needs to be talked about. So what the View should do, I feel, is have a hot topic one day where they discuss the meaning of the word and where it came from, the history of it. Because a lot of young people today have no idea, none, about the history of that word, where it comes from. As you know, some young people use it freely, and it's true, and they have no idea what they're saying. They don't know the context. And I think once they know, they'll change their minds about using it so freely. There are other racial slurs out there that have existed towards black people that are not used, or nobody mentions them much anymore. But there's that big word, and there's that one word that causes a lot of problems. And I understand that. I understand that fully. But I don't think Barbara should have gotten any heat from Sherri-Shepherd for reporting the story. I mean, if Sherri-Shepherd reported the story and mentioned the word, nobody would say anything. But the fact that a white woman says it, who's in her 80s, I guess it's seen as a bit of a problem. But it was Sherri who really didn't think it should have been said. They do discuss it. Dr. Phil did a couple of years ago. I believe he had Paul Mooney on and various other people. discussing it. I think The View should take a crack at it. I really think they should have a whole day discussing it and talking to other people who can address it fully, and the meaning of it, because it's always a hot topic and always a button pusher. That's all I got to say about that. And this is the Boob Wasteland Show, signing off.